Welcome to the Passive Income Podcast. I am your host, Dividend Dave. Please be sure to join the Passive Income Posse by clicking the subscribe button below. And welcome to this episode of the Passive Income Podcast. You can find them on Twitter at Eleno_40. I'm going to throw it over to you to give yourself a brief introduction.
Yo, appreciate that, Dave. Appreciate the intro. I go by 40 bands. My general niche, as far as the platforms that I'm on the internet, is predominantly self-development. Um, the content that I make is kind of designed to help a person uh come to terms and be familiar with their personal power. The ability to transform their own lives and to kind of take that introspective step inwardly and discover who they really are as a person. So that's really about my niche. I got into investing a little over a year ago, actually, so I'm not the best to come with as far as like technical analysis and fundamental analysis of companies. But I do have, I think, a very good understanding of just market fundamentals on a large scale and how the market works and fluctuates. So yeah, personally for me this last year, even though we've been in bear market territory, this has been one heck of an experience for me this last year being invested in the market because I feel like I'm getting that. I feel like I'm getting that in the trenches experience firsthand out the gate, and being my first experience with the market, down an average of 20% across the board. I think it's really uh fundamental experience to have, going into the next 5 or 10 years. Because I feel like if you can survive being in the trenches the first year, if you can survive a bear market your first year of investing, then that really sets you up to just, coast along easily the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah, definitely. So some great points there. I love the what you pointed out about sort of the content you're making on the internet and self development, and I don't want to say mastering, but like the mental part of the game, and even what that you then
Yeah,
talked about, surviving that first year of investing through a bear market, and again, that's part of surviving that mental game, right? And knowing that going forward, yeah, you survive 1 year of a bear market, but that you zoom out at the stock market over decades, and yeah, sure, there's going to be some bear markets here and there, but the bull markets greatly outnumber those bear markets, right? So I think you're in a great position, a great time to get in sometimes in a bear market as well, where you're buying a lot of companies at lower prices, so you're getting you're getting a lot, probably buying some companies on sale that you don't even realize you're buying them at a great price, and yeah, you'll
yeah.
see over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years that, what you bought in 2022 was actually probably a pretty good deal, and you'll be reaping the rewards of those dividends going forward as well. Sorry, I kind
Yeah,
of started to ramble
definitely.
there, but if you wanted to add
No,
anything
I
to
mean,
that.
you're right because one of the things that make me confident in the growth of the market is just zooming out on like a 50-year chart of the S&P 500 or a 100-year chart of the S&P 500. And if you zoom out, and one of the things that's very interesting to me is the Great Depression. I think of like the late 1920s. If you zoom out far enough, that the Great Depression, literally the worst economic time in the history of this country, if you zoom out long enough or far away enough of the overall chart, the Great Depression literally becomes the smallest dip in the slow and gradual appreciation of the market overall.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, zooming out to look at that full picture, the full 50, 100-year picture of like you said, the S&P. And so, yeah, that's, a great point. I guess with that said, let's just jump into some of the different sectors or companies. Anything, what's sort of like your favorite sector or favorite company? What are you focused on investing in as you get into your investing journey?
Actually, I probably anticipate I'll receive a lot of flack for my particular investment decision that I'm going with right now. Um, I've only been particularly into dividends. I would say maybe the last 4 or 5 months that dividends has really caught my attention.
Yeah,
But what I literally made a decision to do, it was like last Friday, so it's not even been a week hardly. So I decided to go all in on one particular REIT. And uh I know what financial twig may have to say about that as far as putting all your eggs in one basket, but it's just I feel this particular REIT. I mean, it has a pretty solid history, since going public in the early '90s. The REIT is Realty Income, and it's been a week that I've been all in. I think I might be down um uh, like $10 or $20, I think, for the week. But I decided to go all in just for the monthly dividend. It's the monthly dividend company,
yeah,
so I just wanted that. I wanted that more compounded returns with the dividends. Getting a dividend each month, it compounds quicker. So
yeah. I
that's
agree.
really the
So
only thing.
I was just going to say I love REITs as well, and I think every single American guest I've had on, as everybody knows, I'm Canadian. Obviously, you're in the U.S. And I'm
Yeah,
quite sure every single American guest I've had on the Passive Income podcast to date has had Realty Income in their portfolio. So I don't think you're going to get a lot of flack for investing in that company. But yeah, you're right.
yeah,
The diversification is something that you're going to probably want to work on in the future. But again, since you're just kind of like you said, you've only been more focused on dividend stocks in the last 3, 4, 5 months. I think it's a great place to start, and if you're all in the beginning, I think that's okay because over time you're going to find some other companies that you grow that portfolio and you diversify outward, whether it's into telecoms or energy or 20 different 20 other sectors that you could find direction going. But I don't think you're going to. I don't. Well, I know you're not going to get any flack over investing in Realty Income. So seems like a solid pick. I'm not overly familiar with it other than what I see tweeted about on Twitter, simply because
yeah,
I'm just not involved in the U.S. market, and I think most people know the reasons if they've listened to my past podcasts is just I'm focused on the Canadian companies, primarily because the exchange rate is not in my favor right now. So that's uh,
yeah,
that's sort of the number one reason why I'm not looking at U.S. companies right now. Maybe down the road, if the exchange rate improves, then I could look at things like Realty Income, or obviously there's hundreds of other great U.S. companies that pay dividends, whether they're monthly or quarterly. And I'm sure we can get into talking about many of those as we go through our discussion here. So, what?
like
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, like I say, this decision is not even hardly a week old to go all in into Realty Income. But before that, I did have a diversified portfolio as best as I could with maybe 8 or 9 stocks, and I had just started a position into SCHD. Um, but another reason that I decided to go all in on Realty Income is because my portfolio value is only about $1,100. So, in finances, the more concentrated your position is, then the greater returns and also potentially the greater losses, of course. But the more
Yeah.
concentrated your position is, the more the compound returns can work in its favor. So I was just thinking, with such a small portfolio overall value, that maybe it could be more advantageous to actually just concentrate that amount into, just one, maybe two particular stocks.
Yeah, I think that, again, that's a great start because you've done the most important part, which is, I think a lot of people have now heard my Moneyball reference of just get on base. You just got to get on
Yeah,
base, and you've done that. You've got yourself to first base, and that's the important part of investing. Is like you've just got to start. You have to just get started, and whether you start with $100, $500, 1,000, whatever it is that you start with, and then yeah, you just keep dollar cost averaging in every paycheck you get, whether whether every paycheck you're putting $50, $100 out of every single paycheck into that account, and
Yeah.
buying more shares to grow more dividends. And we've heard it so many times on Twitter with brick by brick, brick by brick, and everybody's been there from that very first company, one share maybe that you bought, or 10 shares the very first time you bought a company, and then a month later or 3 months later when that dividend is paid out, and suddenly you're like, "Oh, this is I like this." I like it when
Yeah.
more money just shows up in my account, right?
Yeah. I mean, like it's magic. Like, I mean, if you really think about it, it's magic. I'm not sure who I was listening to. I think it was the minority mindset. I think actually someone mentioned that channel on your podcast, maybe.
Possibly.
But it was the minority mindset, and he was saying that dividend income, dividend stocks are the closest thing that you can actually get to a money tree,
Yeah.
because you literally put money into what he called he said you put money into this box, dividend stocks, and you get money out of the box.
Yeah.
It's like the closest thing to a money tree that we could literally have.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the episode with Dividend John. It's just been out for about a week now, but he's got a great term. He's like, I want to put an ATM into the corner of my living room and just have that ATM spit cash
Yeah,
out at me every month or every quarter, right? So it's same similar concept, money tree, having that cash or like ATM cash machine sitting right there in your living room. Just every month, there's a little bit more money, a little bit more, a little bit more, right? And every month you can take that money, put it back in, so the next month you get more money. It's
yeah,
like
like,
that's the magic part of it. Like you said, is magic. Yeah, I agree. Magic.
and I made a Twitter post about this some weeks ago, and I literally it's literally getting paid from dividends means not only do you get paid to go to sleep, you get paid to cook your breakfast, you know, you get paid to go walk through the park, you get paid to sit down and watch the evening news, or you get paid to just, scroll through TikTok or whatever you want to, you get paid for doing all of these things when your mind isn't even focused on the
On
fact
work
that
or
you're getting
making
paid
money.
for doing
Yeah.
these things right now. Like literally you and I are getting paid
Right now.
for right now for doing this past
Just for
episode of
talking.
the Passive Income podcast. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You've probably seen my tweets too. I think it's actually my pin tweet that says, I love when companies started paying me to not work for them, and that's sort of what you're saying, right? You're getting paid to
Yeah.
go walk in the park. That's not working. You're enjoying life, going for a walk in the park. That's great, and you're getting
Yeah.
paid to not work for somebody. Best of
Right.
both worlds, right?
That's a pretty like insightful thought to have. Like you're right. You're getting paid to not work. So like,
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So
yeah. But just to continue along with the I guess with the episode, some of the sectors, like even when it comes to like sector identification, I'm not the best. Like if we began talking about different sectors, then I could maybe just piece together some things. But I don't even pretty much know. I can't name like the 6 or 7 different sectors just off the top of my head. But
yeah,
one of my favorite stocks before I allocated everything into Realty Income was UPS, and I think it might have been Dividend John that talked about this, and I think you've talked about it as well. With the is it's a company that's across the street from where you work. I think you've talked about it. Telephone company. I think it may
yeah,
be.
yeah. Bell Canada. Yeah. So
Yeah,
Bell
and one.
Canada is one of the big three telecoms in Canada. I Going back to your UPS, yeah, I think both UPS and FedEx are solid companies. Parcels and packages are getting delivered every single day, pretty well everywhere in the world by those two companies, and yeah, they
Yeah,
seem Solid. Honestly, I haven't looked into them that much. I know I do see posts about them on Twitter, more so about UPS. So, yeah. And then, yeah, just jumping back into the telecoms, right across the street from where I work, like right outside my office is a Bell Canada like maintenance yard. So there's trucks going in and out of there all the time, like service vans, service trucks, maintenance
Yeah.
vehicles, and everything. And so, yeah, I look across that road and think, you know, I have a very small position in the company, but there's something a little tiny piece over there that I own, right?
And that's exactly like why I like UPS particularly so much, because it's a different feeling when the UPS truck makes a delivery every day. And you can literally you look at the UPS truck differently, because I think KRS One, he's a rapper here in America. He said something to the effect like the more knowledge that you have means that you can see the world differently than other people. So
Yeah,
I'm thinking in my particular, circumstance, when the UPS truck makes a delivery, someone may be anticipating a package. When the UPS truck makes a delivery and I see it, I'm thinking like, wow, like I'm getting paid. Like you say,
yeah,
like a part of this operation, I own a part of this operation.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So like when I could be at a stoplight and see a UPS truck, drive by, minding its own business, going to deliver packages, and I resonate with that company because like they're paying me a percentage of the money that they made that particular day.
yeah. That's a great point. Exactly the same feeling too, right? You see these companies that you own, and you think, "This is awesome. This is awesome." These companies,
Yeah,
there's obviously people that actually do work at these companies work very hard to make them very successful and profitable companies so that people like us can invest in them and so we can get paid to not work for them, right?
yeah, and like I think that's just like if compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, then like dividends would have to be somewhere on a top 10 list of wonders of the
Yeah.
world, because it's just like it's such an incentive to invest in a company or a business that, like, I understand people, there's a barrier of entry as far as just being not like, knowing about these, dividend paying companies, but it seems like a lot of people, if they knew about it, would actually just decide to become dividend investors.
Yeah, well, and the barrier to entry is a lot lower now than it used to be. Now, everybody has a cell phone with mobile apps that you can download for free, and you can
Yeah,
trade. Basically, a lot of these apps are commission free or very low commissions. So yeah, the barrier to entry is a lot lower than it used to be, and learning about this, the information is there now. The internet's been around for 30 years now, or going close to, and so
yeah,
people can find this information out. But yeah, you're right. Is that financial literacy isn't always necessarily there, as we've talked about so many times. The financial literacy isn't taught in schools. If you're not lucky enough to have parents that can teach their children, then it's up to you to learn it on your own. And it's great that you can go and do it now, but yeah, there still seems to be a disconnect of people not knowing where to look, or not knowing where to look for the right information. And again, this is going back to why I love the dividend Twitter community. Everyone is so supportive of each other and always helping and tweeting and bouncing ideas off of each other. And that's the same as what I've been trying to do here on the Passive Income podcast, with all sorts of, as we've discussed before, recording so many guests now, close to 25 guests in just over 2 months. But yeah, just trying to
yeah,
bounce ideas off of people, discussion back and forth. Hopefully, at the end of this, you go away from this, and I've given you something to think about. You're definitely going to have given me a few things to think about, right? So, and that's all.
yeah.
That's what we're trying to do, is like just help each other, think about different perspectives. And hey, maybe I didn't think of it that way before.
And like also, like, just to add note, I saw an interesting picture. I think it might have been. I think it was on Twitter actually, and it was basically saying, a person gets a 5 cent dividend, and they post it on Twitter. I got a 5 cent dividend, and some people may look at that and say, it's 5 cent. Like that's not gonna make. Like who cares about 5 cent? And then a year later they post a dividend, a picture or a post, and they say, I made $5 in dividends, and a person may look at that and say, I don't. It's $5. I don't care about $5
Yeah, you can barely
annually.
buy a coffee at Starbucks for $5, but okay, $5 is $5.
Yeah, but then 30 years later, and they say their annual dividend is $50,000, and that's the point where people
Turns
want
their
to take
heads.
interest.
Yeah,
What I'm saying?
yeah,
It's just like I think it's prevalent in just the self development space. People they always they want to praise you when they see what you've accomplished, but they don't see the 7/8 of the iceberg. They
yeah,
don't
yeah,
see, what I'm saying, the struggle. They don't see the hard work, the persistence. They don't see the times where you just wanted to quit because you didn't see any, you didn't even see any progress. All
yeah.
like all typically the general public, all they see is the victory. And I think
I
I
have a
think that's
great
a lot.
so I'm sure you know who Mr. Beast is, like one of the biggest, if not the biggest YouTuber. And he had a great quote that basically said, everybody thought I was crazy until I was successful. And then once I was successful, I was a genius. And that's very similar to your point of
Yeah.
people see the victory and the success at the end. They don't see everything leading up to it
Yeah, because like
or appreciate everything leading up to it.
if you just take like your typical person, it's crazy. People think it's crazy, to work 16-hour days or 18-hour days and do that shit. I'm sorry for the language, but to
No
do that,
problem.
you know what I'm saying, for 10 years. Like if you tell that if I tell my therapist that's my plan to be successful is to work 16 or 18-hour days for the next 10 years, then she's going to literally probably read the DSM-5 to me and try to explain to me why that's bad for my mental health. It's,
Right.
what I'm saying? But at the end of 10 years, when I'm exactly where I want to be in life, people they look at it differently. Like you just said with the quote of Mr. Beast, people look at that differently. At that point, you know, is people look at it differently.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So yeah, this is a little bit different episode of the Passive Income Podcast, which is no great
Yeah,
because I love how sometimes they go a little bit differently than I've expected, and it's a great surprise. Hopefully, the viewers and listeners are enjoying and having a little bit different perspective as well because we haven't really delved deep into the different sectors like I do in a lot of other episodes, and
yeah,
that's fine. That's good. I'm really enjoying sort of hearing your thoughts and you know, especially on the mental health side of it and the thinking and just a very much also a fresh perspective. Still, it seems like you're a relatively new investor and
right,
you're like I said before, you're on base. That's the important part. You started, you've got on base. You're starting to do that one penny at a time. Shout out to Harris, one penny at a time podcast.
right,
Um, but that's exactly it, right? Like, you can't make a dollar without 100 pennies, basically, right? So one
right,
penny at a time will get you there. You can't make $100 without 100 $1 bills, right? We have
right.
$1 coins here, but oh wow. So with that said, I'm going to pull up your link tree here because you have a lot of stuff going on. You have a
Yeah.
podcast as well, so shout out to your podcast as well, Becoming Apex podcast. You want to talk about that for a minute?
The Becoming Apex podcast is literally the result of speaking of Harris, Elliot, shout out, one penny at a time podcast. It's literally a result of talking with him maybe for 45 minutes or an hour on a Discord chat. And he Harris makes it seem so easy, like he's so chill and confident in his base of knowledge as far as investing his personal investment and personal finance journey. And I guess I thought to myself, like I have a story, and it's literally just telling a story. So the Becoming Apex podcast, the first season or the first 2 or 3 seasons is literally just me having a platform to tell my story, which I've never done before. I'm on YouTube, and but I've never told my personal story. So I'm using the first couple of seasons of the Becoming Apex podcast to tell my story, my background and things. And I wanted to evolve into, like, I do anticipate to have guests one day, but literally the idea is everyday people who have overcome monstrous adversity.
Yeah.
But these are people, who aren't in the eyes of the public. These are the UPS drivers, what I'm saying, who go to work every day,
Right.
and literally every day they're fighting the worst demon that you could ever think a person possible of fighting or surviving. It's just people who have just such inspirational stories that no one knows about.
Cool. I will put the link to this entire link tree in the description below. So if you want to check out any of these links, whether it's the podcast or your YouTube channel, I see you have Twitch there as well. You'll be able to click the link in the description. And
Right.
yeah,
Appreciate that.
no problem. So yeah, let's just talk about sort of, is your YouTube channel similar to the podcast or a little bit different direction there?
The YouTube is not. YouTube is basically where all of my personal development content is. Um and I just talk about, like, the mission statement of my YouTube channel is to provide esoteric content that's designed to make a person think outside the box. So it's not necessarily designed to make you change the way you think, but just to go deeper
Right.
and have a deeper understanding of what it is that you actually think.
Cool. Cool. And then
I've been
obviously
on
you have
YouTube.
obviously we've talked extensively about Twitter as well, as that's
Yeah.
pretty much our favorite platform in the Div Twit community. And I see you have Instagram there as well. Twitch is what do you do on Twitch?
Twitch is it's literally for fun side hustle. I just play video games on there, but
Cool.
yeah, I like it because, like, you can actually monetize it. Like,
Right.
again, talking about things that you get paid for that you would do anyway. So, like, I play games anyway, so there's the
Yeah.
possibility to monetize that and literally get a paycheck in the mail, or in your bank account for just playing video games.
Yeah, who would, like, my generation, that would have, no one have ever would have thought of that back in the when video games started becoming popular in the 80s and 90s. Nobody would have ever imagined that one day you could just literally sit on at home on your computer and play video games for a living, but now people actually do it.
Yeah,
And I
and
see a
like
couple of, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's an easy $50 or $100 into my investment portfolio. So it's
Wow.
the idea for me is to become my own bank,
Yeah.
to reinvest so much money or capital back into my own self, making more money and capital, that I literally just become a bank.
Yeah. Well, going right back to Dividend John's idea of having that ATM sitting in the corner of your living room, just spitting out cash to you every month, right? So,
Right.
and I see you have a couple other links there, merch store, and
Yeah,
some
that's
looks like some referral links as well.
yeah. The merch store is just it's Twitch merch right now, but I wouldn't be against expanding that merch store to just cover like my YouTube channel, you know, and
Right.
maybe my podcast just have merch, across all different platforms, which is an example of diversification within itself, just
Yeah.
diversifying your streams of income.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Awesome. Yeah, so you have a lot going on there, which is great. Good for you. And I just kind of, where do you think, I want to get back into talking about, stock market and different stocks and different sectors. Right
Yeah.
now, focused on Realty Income, which I think is a great start. Where do you see yourself like in 3 months, 6 months, a year? Um, let's just keep it at a 12-month, 6 to 12 month time frame right now. Like, what other company do you? I know you've mentioned UPS, and maybe that's the company that you're like hot on the heels, hot, like top of your watch list right now. But after Realty Income, where do you want to go? What company excites you the most? If it isn't UPS, or if it is UPS,
Honestly, I can't say. You've seen the dividend calculators that they have,
yeah,
where you can anticipate how much dividend income you'll make or whatever. And with that calculation, I came out with, if I invest in Realty Income for the next 30 years and only contributing $2,400 a month, or $2,400 a year annually,
yeah,
and the dividend growth stays the same, the dividend yield percentage stays the same, and at the end of 30 years, I could potentially bring in about $300,000 of annual dividend income from Realty Income.
wow,
and and I think it's such a peculiar investment strategy to just go all in on one company, especially for the long term. But it's almost as if I reverse engineered Warren Buffett famous quote of when others are fearful, be greedy.
right,
And that's because all across the financial space, people will tell you that it's smart to diversify. And that goes to tell me that if people are fearful of going all in into one particular sector, one particular stock, if people are fearful of that, then I could be maybe it could be advantageous for me to
right.
do the opposite of what the popular sentiment is.
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting. And like I said, that's because you've just totally made me think of something, and that's what I love about having different people on here is just making each other think about different things like that. And yeah, if you're fearful to diversify, then maybe being greedy is a good idea. Um,
Yeah,
and I've also seen it go the other way. I'm on the edge of over diversification. Is like I've just got too much scattered everywhere, and maybe I should be. Well, I have started more recently now to sort of focus in on the companies that I really want to take that really long term 10, 20, maybe I'll be around for 25 more year strategy, right? So, yeah,
yeah,
that's a very interesting perspective. So, yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on that for sure.
no problem. But just I guess to answer your question more specifically, if I were to go and like start a position into another stock, one thing that would be non-negotiable for me is to actually have the dividends from Realty Income basically start and maintain that entire new position. So with UPS, if I start a position in UPS right now, I could have one entire share of UPS like in a year and a half, strictly from the dividends of Realty Income. So I
Right.
have kind of thought about this. So I couldn't really tell you into which particular stock I would start a position in. I do like Tesla at the prices that it's at right now, but the thing about non-paying dividend stocks, and I learned this from Ryan Williams. The thing about non-paying dividend stocks is you pretty much have to have an exit strategy in order to realize your profits.
Right.
With dividend producing assets or stocks, you don't have to have an exit strategy.
Not at all.
You
Just
just get
sit
keep
on them
getting paid.
forever. Yeah, sit
Right.
on them and let that dividend roll in every single month or every quarter, right? So
Right. So like I do like UPS. Um I do like Coca-Cola. Um
Ryan,
I
that
like those two in particular.
sorry, Ryan, that's at Retire with Ryan on Twitter, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Him and I are scheduled to record tomorrow, actually. So it's
Oh,
interesting
cool.
timing.
Hey, that's freaking awesome, man. Like I think it was probably Ryan who just was the catalyst for me decided to become an income investor. And I talked about this with Harris at one point. I just think it's just like financial Twitter. I think it's really inspirational to see people doing what these things, but doing it in a way that is accessible, what I'm saying, for the average person. Like you can see like people on CNBC who, analysts on CNBC who are getting like, what I'm saying, 100, 200, $300,000 a year and dividend income. That's a very big step for someone,
Yeah,
who's making $200 or $300 a week. That's a very big step. But then when you see people who have made the system work for themselves and are in the process of constantly growing it and making it work more to their advantage, it's more inspirational, to see someone only a small step ahead of you versus seeing someone who is miles ahead of you.
right. Yeah, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. And you, if you're at mile one of the marathon, you can't compare yourself to someone who's at mile 25 of the marathon, right?
Right, yeah.
So you did mention Coca-Cola there a second ago, which I was going to bring up consumer staples because there are so many great U.S. companies in that sector, like Coca-Cola, like Pepsi, like Costco, like Walmart. You can put Johnson
Yeah.
and Johnson into the either healthcare, I guess, or consumer staples because they have so many products. But yeah, just so many U.S. companies in that consumer staples sector, and General Mills is another one. The kind of the list goes on and on. And you've probably heard me say in other podcasts, I work in the food industry. So, but even if I didn't work in the food industry, I would still have to eat every single day. Everybody eats every day. So that's why I'm
Right.
somewhat bullish on a lot of different consumer staple stocks. And again, if I was investing into the US market more than when I start investing into the US market, it's probably going to be those consumer staples I look at first, like the Costco's, the Walmarts, the Cokes, the Pepsis, and the list just goes on and on there. And I don't know, any thoughts sort of on that sector or
I
any of those
know
companies?
um it's a popular sentiment in financial Twitter that investing should be boring. Personally, I don't agree with that. And for reasons or whatever, about my past, my childhood, I don't like boring. And if it's boring, then I lose interest.
Right.
And not to take anything away from the business fundamentals of those companies, they're very they're um their requirement for society to function properly. They have to maintain their level of operation in order for the rest of society to, they're foundational to a society. But to me, they're just not interesting. And
Yeah.
and it's not that they're not interesting from a business perspective. They're just not interesting from if
Excitement,
I
like,
put money into, yeah, like psychological, if I put money into Coca-Cola, 20 years from now, I could have a lot of money, but those 20 years aren't going to like feed my passion.
where something like Tesla is an exciting new company and the future looks very bright for Tesla. And so something like
Yeah,
that psychology, you're looking at a company like Tesla, or I guess maybe Apple as well, in sort of more the
yeah.
technology where it's just a lot more exciting for you. Is that Am I hearing
Yeah,
what you're
like
saying correctly?
it's when I invest and it's exciting to me, that makes me want to continue to do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like Realty Income, like it has a monthly dividend. So
Yeah.
at least one time a month, I'm going to get a huge dopamine boost.
Yeah.
And I understand that the more money that I put in there until, throughout the month, the bigger that dopamine boost is going to be on the 13th or the 14th every month.
Yeah.
But something like Coca-Cola, and I don't like quarterly dividends, I guess, man. Like, I gotta Coca-Cola, UPL, I have to put money into these companies for 3 months until I can actually realize a profit. It's just like I don't know, maybe my idea of investing or my strategy is just like off center from the norm. It's
Not
like
so much.
again, I am a beginner, so.
So yeah, so I started out the same way, wanting those monthly dividends, and I do have quite a few monthly dividends from so many different companies now because, like I said, my strategy is a little bit scattered. But then I
Yeah,
did start getting into some companies that pay quarterlies as well. So I still, again, this is when you get into that diversification part of your portfolio. Is like, yeah, you get that monthly dopamine hit when they hit, your account mid month or whenever they show up. But then,
yeah,
every 3 months or every month, I'm also like, oh, does that company pay the quarterly dividend this month? Oh, does that company? Or I look back at my spreadsheet and I'm like, oh, this company's paying me a quarterly dividend this month. So, it's kind of I think it's sort of the best of both worlds where you're getting that dopamine hit from the monthlies, the monthly dividend payers, but then you're also getting another little extra boost every few months from these other companies that pay you a quarterly. And you have to keep in mind too that a 5% yield is 5% yield whether it's paid monthly or paid quarterly, right? So
yeah. True, true. Yeah,
it's so it's like 5% is still 5% no matter how it's divvied up. 5% is 5% all day long. So yeah, I don't know,
yeah.
just something, I guess, something for you to think about going forward and into the future if that's the way. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. And in your position of wanting to get as many monthly dividends as you can to, or even just like you said, if you're all in on Realty Income, probably a great place to start. Probably a great position to build up a pretty big basket, and just let that monthly dividend get bigger and bigger each month until, like you said, then that dividend can just buy you another share of another company, right?
Yeah, and I also like the from what I've researched in the last week or so, as far as the business fundamentals of Realty Income, I like they're pretty diversified. I think their largest um real estate in company that they have, that's one of their clients is only 15% of their portfolio.
Right.
You know, I think they're pretty diversified.
Yeah.
So I think, to an extent, REITs are literally comparable to ETFs, and there are people who do go all in into one ETF. So I don't
Yeah.
think there's not a big difference, in going all in. I don't think into a REIT or versus going all in into an ETF.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, and I tend to agree. REITs. It's not like a company just owns one property. The whole idea of a REIT is that they do own several properties, and quite often that REIT is focused on whether it's retail properties or healthcare properties or whatever. Like I have a few different. I was explaining to someone the other day how I kind of almost feel that my just within my REITs, my portfolio is diversified. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I have REITs that own retail space. I have REITs that own healthcare, like doctors' offices and medical clinics, and I'm probably even hospitals or the land hospitals sit on. I have another REIT that owns. Um, it's called automotive properties, so they own the land that car lots take up in big cities like Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, where the real estate is extremely expensive, so that land is extremely valuable. So I really
yeah.
like that reason. Like I said, even just within my REIT portfolio, I have this diversification, right?
And
Of
like I
different
just
sectors. Like it's all real estate, but still covering these different sectors.
and I think like for me, I would think that going all in into Realty Income excuse me, say 10 years from now when maybe I have 100K invested into Realty Income. Like to me, that's literally no different than going all in and literally into the real estate market. You
Right.
know, because of course there are people who just solely invest in real estate. They don't even touch the stock market. They buy houses and they get rent every month. So I don't think there's a lot of difference. I think I'm just cutting out the middleman of buying a property and hiring a property manager or managing it myself. I think I'm just cutting out that portion, and
That's
to me it's
exactly
just real estate
and
investing.
that's exactly the reason I love REITs. People have probably heard me say this is like you get you get the advantage of investing in real estate with REITs without the hassle of being the landlord. And sure,
Right.
there are
Yeah.
people that don't mind being the landlord. That's they do it. That's their thing. And obviously, investing in physical real estate is also another great way to make money. But for me personally, REITs are the way to go. I have that exposure to real estate without being the
Yeah.
landlord. Again, they're paying me to not work, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's probably one of the best feelings that I imagine a person could ever have. Just um having a positive return with very low upfront energy expenditure.
Yeah.
Like I think that's probably the American dream in a nutshell if you think about it.
Nice, nice. Um, yeah, and the other nice thing about REITs, obviously, is they have a pretty good yield for the most part. Quite often
Yeah.
between the 6 and 9% yield, which I know a lot of people think that's high. A lot of people are looking for the 3 to 5% yield with growth, but the REITs also by law have to pay out something like 95% to shareholders. So
Yeah.
therefore the uh, the yield does kind of creep up a little bit higher. And hey, you know what? I'm going to take a 6 or 7% yield all day long, right?
Yeah, definitely. Which is just kind of makes me think that there was a particular company. It was a mortgage lending company called UWMC, and I literally just saw someone post about it on Twitter. I think it might have been Dividend Kid, and I think the share price. I think my cost basis was like $3.06 per share. So like when he posted about it, it was maybe 3 or 4 months ago. I just bought like 3 shares because YOLO. So,
Yeah.
but actually, like when I sold out of it last Friday, it was probably one of the most. It probably performed better than any other stock that I had owned. Within those last 3 or 4 months. And
Yeah.
like I think, like when I first bought in, I bought in at like 3 shares. No, but I eventually I added up to about 9 shares. And with a share, like I think I sold it for like 37% appreciation,
Nice.
profit or whatever. But I mean, if push come to shove, I literally could use dividends to just build a position back up in UWMC because I think it has a really high yield. Like I haven't looked at any of the fundamentals as far as debt or what I'm saying, any of those things. I don't know how it's doing with debt, but it has like a 12% dividend yield,
Yeah.
so and the thing about like high yield companies, like I haven't heard many people talk about it. A lot of dividend investors, they say don't chase the yield, but I'm not sure if I'm being short sighted, but to me it would make sense if a company pays a high yield to capture that high yield as long as they're paying it. And if they cut it, if the company fundamentals begin to tank or whatever, just sell out the position.
Yeah. That's another interesting perspective. And yeah, those high yields are tempting, obviously, very tempting because it's more money. But I think, yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. The fear is the cut of a dividend always, and you 99 times out of 100 when a dividend cut is announced, then the share price also tanks. So it's like, okay,
yeah,
well, has that high yield have I realized enough dividends in that high yield to cover a loss of a share price drop, right? So
yeah,
I think you'd end up walking a bit of a tightrope, That's just my opinion, not financial advice. This isn't
No, I
financial
mean, yeah,
advice.
I definitely agree. Yeah, it would definitely like cut the cord, you know, a little short, but yeah.
Oh, wow, man. With that said, we're just over 50 minutes, and I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up, but any
I
other
mean,
thoughts on your mind?
I feel like, you know, I feel like we could talk for another hour or two, but you know what I'm saying, understandably so. I just think
Yep.
it's I think it's gone well, like you say, it kind of ventured away from your normal topic of discussion, but I
Yep.
think
No, which has been great. I love it sometimes when things turn out a little differently than expected because, hey, that's great, you know?
right, yo, it's definitely been an experience, man. Like uh, um yeah, I hope the viewers have found uh
Some
some
value.
value from the discussion. Yeah, you know.
I think so. Yeah, like I said, you've made me think of things differently, so I'm sure other people will have a few other thoughts as well. And that's what it's all about, just making, helping people think about something that maybe they haven't thought about before, right? So,
Right.
with that said, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the Passive Income podcast and spending some time with me. And
Yes, sir.
if you're still watching this late in the program, you have to click that subscribe button below. Those are the rules. I don't make up the rules, but you're still watching after 51, 52 minutes. Let's click that subscribe button below and, join and grow the Passive Income posse.
Yo, smash that like button,
Smash
click that
and
subscribe button,
subscribe.
and share it on your social medias. You know what I'm saying? Bring all of your friends. Next Thanksgiving, just